Hey, what is going on, guys? There's been quite a few leaks that have been floating around that the Zapatron could potentially be returning to the OG mode, as well as having different stats. So in today's video, we're to do analysis and try and predict how powerful the Zapatron will be in the OG mode meta. We're going to do this by first looking at how powerful it was historically, and we're really going to use OG products as our reference point. We'll then look into what leak stat changes we know of and how that could possibly affect the way the weapon is used. And then finally, we'll talk about how strong I think it will be in the current OG mode meta based on those stats. Okay, let's start out with how powerful it was originally. So the Zapatron only existed for a very brief period of time in historical season 1, 30 minutes to an hour. There's that one gameplay we have of somebody using it. We don't have a lot to go off of if we only look at that historical pieces of evidence. But the good news is that with OG products like Era, you were able to try and use the Zapatron again in a fairly historical environment. So I'm going to show on screen now some gameplay from Nubis so you can see what the Zapatron would look like in historical season 1. Highly recommend you check out Nubis' 100 drop series. I'll link the original video from where these clips came from in the pinned comment below. So really what I want you to notice is that, well, Zapatron is a hit scan weapon. It takes some time to charge up, and it originally had a 4-round magazine, did 150 damage, and could one-shot structures. That's incredibly powerful. It's basically like a heavy sniper, but buffed further in some ways, slightly nerfed in others because it is a hit scan weapon, which is a huge buff, but you have to charge it up. You can kind of nullify this charge disadvantage, as you can see in the second clip, which I'll play again, of where you can charge it up, quickly peek out, fire, and then get back in cover. So that's one way you could use it. It's almost like a charged shotgun, right? You would charge it up, you peek out, fire, and then get back behind cover. Same sort of situation there. While this is definitely a really strong weapon, I don't think it would be the best weapon of Chapter 1 outright. There's several problems with the Zapatron. Yes, in this clip, Nubis has 570 ammo, but that's not supposed to exist, right? Historically, you would realistically at best get one Zapatron. You'd only have a few ammo pieces. Assuming you missed a few shots, you'd only be able to get like 3 or 4 eliminations, and then it's just dead weight at that point. Other weapons like the original double pump, which drawed faster, the original drum gun, original P90, I think are all better weapons because those things are generally more versatile. Pump shotgun, not really, but the drum gun P90 were very versatile weapons, and you can also use those for the entire game. You could easily drop a 20 bomb with those weapons. With the Zapatron, sure, you get 4 kills, and then you have to use other weapons. So it's definitely a really good weapon, but I don't think it's outright the best to have ever existed. Okay, now let's move into the stats changes. We have a leaked gameplay clip which points out a lot of the stats changes, and you can also see the stats on the Fortnite wiki. So full credit to Ryan Does Leaks and FNBR Intel on X. I'm going to play you that clip now. So to summarize the nerfs, we know that the damage has been reduced from 150 to 101. Magazine size has gone down from 4 to 1, and reload is up from 2.1 to 2.52. It should still be hit scan though, and there is a first shot accuracy animation there. That's a really enormous nerf. You're losing a third of your damage. You lost 3/4 of your magazine, and you have a reload nerf by about 25%. There are still some nice positives though. You can still one-shot people, even in zero build. 101 will do 252 headshot, which will be enough to shoot one-shot anybody in builds or zero builds. You should still be hit scan, which is absolutely useful. And we don't know the structure damage for sure, but I'm going to assume it's still going to do high structure damage. In terms of playstyle, it does change a few things up a little bit, but I don't think it's too significant. Headshots would be more rewarding, as instead of doing 150, you're doing 101, while the effective headshot damage has been unchanged, so headshots are generally more useful. You're going to have to go slower because you have to reload after every shot. One question that's still going to be floating around is how easily you can get ammo, right? If you're able to get ammo through like ammo boxes in normal ways, then great, you can afford to fire a few shots, miss a few. But if you could only get a few ammo from the supply drop and you're not finding this thing again, you're not finding the energy cells, well, it's going to be a lot harder to use, as then you're going to have to conserve your ammo, so something to keep in mind there. So now for our final section here, let's talk about how strong I think it will be in the current meta. Well, in terms of the sniper class, you have 2 competitors, semi-auto and bolt action. Semi-auto I don't think is that amazing, so let's really focus on the bolt action, which I think is a great example of a solid weapon, but not a mandatory carry. And let's compare the two. Damage, well, the bolt action actually carries the advantage. Bolt action does 105 to 116 damage. This thing does 101. Not that noticeable of a difference, but something to keep in mind. Both of them are able to one-shot anybody with a critical hit, so not a concern there. The big advantage of the Zapatron is you have hit scan firing instead of projectile, which is massively useful, right? Because hit scan is so much easier to aim. With projectile, you have to account for bullet drop as well as leading your target. Hit scan, you don't have to do any of that. That's a massive advantage. It also theoretically should do more wall damage as well, which is a nice bonus. It could be useful at close range. You could chain up snipes with your teammates. Interesting plays you can make there. However, this thing doesn't have a scope. It'll make it more usable at close range, but less effective at long range. I don't think that's really an advantage either way. Kind of like how the hunting doesn't have a scope, the bolt does. Both can be useful in different situations. However, this thing is a much slower effective fire rate. The reload is slightly faster than the bolt. The bolt reloads in 2.7 to 3 seconds. This one does it in 2.5. But you also have to charge for a few seconds, meaning the effective fire rate is much slower. Its DPS is much lower. Second thing, charging at close range is going to give your enemies a giant warning that you're about to fire, so keep that in mind, that it's going to be hard to use a sneak up play. It's not really going to work with this thing at closer ranges. And 3, this thing is very poor at reacting to situations. Because you need to charge it, if you get jumped and you see an opportunity to hit a snipe, you're not going to be able to do that if someone peeks out of cover for half a second. Not really going to work with this thing unless you already have it charged up. Bolt action, you can pull it out, scope it, and fire very quickly. This is not going to be possible with the Zapatron, so a pretty major disadvantage there. I think also this will depend on the ammo situation. If you can get ammo easily, it's going to be a lot more competitive with the bolt action. But if you're unable to get ammo outside of when you initially find the gun, then it's going to be a lot weaker than it would be in isolation if you ignored ammo. Overall, when you look at the differences, this thing is going to be probably a decent option competitive with the bolt action, but I don't see it as being this particularly amazing weapon that everybody has to carry. I think it'll be situational for those that like a slower playstyle, a defensive playstyle, where you can predict what your enemy's going to do, pre-charge a Zapatron. This could be really useful, but if someone wants to play fast-paced, I don't think this is going to be the right weapon for you because it's just too slow to charge up and fire. So I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I'm going to say it's going to be similar to the bolt action and strength. That's going to be my best prediction, but again, that's a prediction. They could change the stats last minute. Something could change, and that'll change the play style, but that's what I think at this point in time. So, I hope this video was interesting, and I'll catch you in the next one.